Dante's Divine Comedy, Inferno, Canto the 13th.
Was this the one where they were in the River of Blood?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there was a River of Blood. I remember that there were some famous evil people there, and the worse your sins were, the more buried in the blood you were, and there's people further down where the blood was over their heads completely, right?
So that part of Circle 7 was for the violent against others. This next circle will be for the violent against themselves. They come upon this huge forest, and Dante can see leafless trees as far as he can see. He sees harpies flying between them. Dante looks around and he hears screaming, what he would expect, but doesn't see anyone. So he begins to suspect maybe they're underneath the roots of these trees. Virgil says, I know what you're thinking, but that's not where they are. Here's the thing, though. If I tell you, you wouldn't believe me.
After everything you've seen, you still wouldn't believe what
Yeah, Dante's a little bit skeptical. He's like, I've seen some pretty crazy things. Virgil says, go over to that tree over there and break off one of the branches. Dante's a bit confused, but he goes over and he breaks it off. And he
Wait, can I predict?
Yes, go ahead.
Are there a bunch of little teeny people inside the trees?
No, but that's a good guess.
Oh, okay.
Here's what actually happens. He breaks it off and he hears a scream coming from the tree saying, why would you do that? And the tree tells him that I used to be a person. The people here have been turned into the trees.
Whoa, another over the garden wall parallel. The
You're
Edelwood
right.
trees.
I didn't think of that.
The Edelwood trees.
Yeah, that might have been pulled from here as well. As he pulls it off, there's like this blood coming from where he broke twig off as well. So there's blood pouring out of where the stick was broken. The words seem to be coming out of the wound as well. Virgil says, hey, sorry, I wish we didn't have to do that, but Dante wouldn't have believed me if he hadn't have seen it. While you're here, though, would you tell us who you are, please? He was an advisor to Frederick II. Basically, he was Frederick's closest advisor. At some point, Frederick got super paranoid and began torturing him because he thought he was working against him secretly. To escape the torture, he killed himself. Thus, he is here. Because the trees here aren't just people, they are specifically people who have committed suicide. What happens is, the harpies will come around, and I lied earlier. They're not leafless trees, because it mentions leaves right here. The harpies will come around, and they'll feed on the leaves, and in doing so, they both hurt the people, because they give them pain, but because they also allow them to speak and allow them to scream, they also allow them to get relief from the pain. So it's pain and pain's relief at the same time. And he says they're going to be like this until Judgment Day. And when Judgment Day comes, basically they're going to get their bodies back, but instead of living in their bodies are going to be hung on the trees that are them.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of like
That's an interesting irony.
Yeah. Another very ironic punishment.
So, a reminder, this circle is for what kind of people again?
In all, the violent against themselves. Right here we see the suicides, but there are more than just suicides who are violent against themselves. And in fact, while they're waiting by the tree, they hear some yelling off in the distance. And there's these two people running from a pack of wolves. The two people here, each one represents another kind of violence against the self. One of them is a famous squanderer, and the other is a famous destroyer of goods. So, Giacomo de Sant'Andrea, his favorite prank to pull was burning things down.
Oh.
There was one time where, to celebrate the arrival of some nobles who had come over, he set fire to all of the workers' huts and the outbuildings of his own estate.
Oh, wow.
The ending always confuses me a little bit. I think it relies a little bit more on knowledge of people's names. Like, it says Giacomo de Sant'Andrea, and like people then would like know who that is. They'd be like, ah, yeah, Giacomo. I hate that guy. What ends up happening is the dogs are chasing them. One of them leaps off into a bush to try and hide, but the dogs jump in and find him, and they tear like all his limbs off, and they just tear him completely apart. In the meantime, the bush that he dives into is, of course, a suicide. So he starts screaming in pain, and there's blood rushing everywhere. It turns out that this guy, he's just some random Florentine suicide. So that is the end of Canto the 13th.